What's going on, guys? It's Shadow from SG TCG, bringing you guys another testing round. Still on Marco. We're basically playing King of the Hill. You use the deck you use until you lose. So this time, my buddy Moxie's using Ace. Still using Marco. I ended up winning Dice Roll and chose to go second, and I ended up opening up with an Ezo, which on play lets me look at top 5 for a Whitebeard card. I think I end up grabbing a Rush Ace here, I believe. From looking from the hand, I have that or no, I grab a Newgate. It was either that or a 2K Jozu. But the Newgate's gonna help with clearing board. And then I use leader ability to cycle a card. So here, what I did is drew a card if it had counter on it. I took that card and I put the Newgate on the top. So consistently just gonna put the Newgate and look for counter this way, just so that I can kind of filter out and have some type of protection. Pass, as you can see, all he did was attach 3 Dawn, swing for 8. I took the life. Not worth really protecting all of it. And it's still early in the game, so I could potentially draw more counter. So I'm going to start the turn off with, again, attaching a Dawn to my Marco leader, drawing a card, and then cycling the Newgate right back to the top so that I can use it later in the match. And now I'm swinging for 5 with the Ezo. He takes it. I'm swinging 6 with my leader. I think he ends up taking this one too, which could be two things. It's either he has no counter in hand or he's just looking for other options, which a lot of the time early game is the case. Sometimes it's worth just taking hits to see better options, especially early game. He swings 5 at me. I'm going to counter out with the 1K Rush Ace. And then he plays Ezo's and look top 5 for a card, leaving him with 4 Dawn left, which you can think of what it could be. It more than likely will be the Marco blocker. So he ends up finding Fire Fist, which is a good way to clear board with Ace or Marco, essentially also, since Marco could give something -2, put something in range. But of course, again, he plays out the Marco blocker and passes turn to me. Now I'm at 6 Dawn, which I do end up having the combo here. So I do my leader ability to draw a card. And I'm going to cycle something back. Again, will be the Newgate. I did draw the Sanji, so it could have been either or. Reducing that Marco blocker to 3, and then playing out the 5-cost Marco to pop a 3K or less on play. So, able to remove it without him triggering the ability, since he is currently at 3 life. If he was at 2 life, he would have been able to cycle out a Whitebeard card to bring it back. So I end up swinging, he takes it. Now he's down to 2, which would have been perfect. So if I would have swung first and then popped, he would have been able to keep that blocker on the field. So he swings 5 at life. Here I'm considering on whether I want to counter out or take it. And I end up countering out with a 2K. Looks like my hand was entirely made up of 2Ks, which is a little unfortunate, wasting a 2K on a 5K swing. And he plays out the blocker Marco again. Currently at 8 Dawn, which is a decent spot to be at. I could play out the Newgate and just clear the Marco, but the Marco would stick due to his ability. So I considered it not being really worth it. But it looks like I'm going to play out something else. I end up swinging 6 at life first. And then he ends up using this red event that I've never seen before. Which is, you will never... there is no way you could defeat me. Which is an EB01 card. It's a 3-cost counter card, which can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with an original power of 6,000. So even if I had a Dawn attached to the Marco and it would have been a 7K, that would have checked for the original base, which would still KO the Marco. And I don't have an event in my hand to save it. So unfortunately, he ends up clearing the Marco. And good thing I swung with it first. So this is a prime example of why you always want to swing with your characters first. With the exception of Bonnie, you obviously want to swing with whatever's going to be more beneficial for you. So the event ends up clearing my Marco, and I opt to go with the Rush Ace, swinging 7 at life. putting more pressure on him. He ended up countering out or blocking the 7k leader swing with the Marco. He dropped the card to protect it. So I'm just putting pressure on life just because Ace is a little finicky. It's a lot of the time doesn't have a lot of counter, and it relies heavily on its events, which leader ability does allow him to use event cards as counter cards, which you're going to see a sneak peek of that later on. Or not even just counter, but like attack buff. So he taps all 8 Dawn, and he ends up playing a Dragon. Dragon's an attached 2 Dawn. He puts it on his leader, and he's going to swing for 7 at the Ace. You're going to see me use a 2k counter to protect it, and I only do this just because it's going to force him to use the Dragon to swing at my character once again, instead of going for my lead. Just trying to buy myself some turns. The Dragon swing connects. I let it go, and he's asking for the ability on the card because that Ace does have an ability where once per turn, if this character would be removed from play by one of my opponent's effects, you can negate neg 2000 power on him and he sticks on the field. But unfortunately, since it was a combat battle, Ace's ability does not trigger and he does leave the field since I don't KO out of it or counter out of it. So I end up using leader ability here. I'm using it to cycle. I should have put the peel off at the bottom just to see what else I could have cycled. Oh, I do that. So yeah, I put the peel off to the bottom. I don't need it. I minus 2000 to the Dragon, which brings him down to 7. And I'm going to pay 1 Dawn, and I'm going to play out an Otama from hand to give it another minus 2, which puts it in range for my 7-cost Newgate, which allows me to pop this Dragon, which is what I need to do. So I clear the board of the biggest threat. The on-play ability for the Newgate will give a rested Dawn to my leader, so making him a 7k, which is perfect, because now it leaves me a Dawn to play out an Ezo and search top 5 for something that could potentially help me this next turn. I end up finding the 4-cost Marco, which honestly, if I'm grabbing that, there's nothing else that could have really helped me. I was just looking for counter at that point. I swing 7 at life. He ends up blocking and then giving me another rush Ace to keep the Marco on board. I end up passing. I have nothing else I'm able to do. And then here he has the one thing that can counter out of the Newgate in this very moment, and that is Flame Emperor. So the Flame Emperor ends up popping my Newgate, and you're gonna see here in a second. Pops the Newgate. Such a great card for Ace. So you can only use this card if your leader is Ace. K up to one of your opponent's characters with 8,000 power or less, and the leader gains double attack plus 3,000. So I didn't have counter in my hand, so I had to take the double attack, putting me down to 1, making it equal ground again. And then he plays Fire Fist right after to clear both my Ezos, which I could have used to just swing big all around the board, which was unfortunate for me. He passes the turn. I end up drawing. And I have a Rayleigh in hand, you see, but I could have potentially did peel off and, looked for some other cards, potentially counter cards, but instead I'm going to opt to -2, play out a Sanji that plays a Rayleigh, which can neg the Marco down and pop it. Here, luckily for me, he doesn't have anything to save it, so he opts to not throw anything to trash to save it just because he's going to go all in next turn. I swing 6. Here he counters out with a 2k. And then pass turn to him. And then here's you're going to see the biggest misplay on my part. Always, always, always remember what your opponent's leader abilities can do, because you're going to see me forget Ace's ability, and I miscalculated this turn. So he's going to go for lethal, attach a 7 Dawn to Ezo to swing for 9k. I have exactly 10k counter. I could have got out of this swing, but I opted to see how it was going to go. Maybe I'll get another 2k. So I decide to let the swing go through, and I get a brick. So you're going to see me take this because I figure I can get out of the leader swing. And unfortunately, I'm wrong because I see 3 Don, and he's going to attach 2 event cards to make his leader 10k, and I do not have enough to get out of it. If you guys like the content, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below what you guys thought, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.